Hi, everybody. It's Ricky Heller from rickyheller.com here again today. Today, I wanted to talk about a topic that's close to my heart, sweet things, because as you know, if you read my blog, I love desserts and I love baking and all those things. So this came about because I have a lot of desserts posted on my blog, and a lot of them are even from the beginning of when I started blogging, which now feels like a long time ago, about 6 years ago. And so I had a comment recently from a reader named Tiffany on my butter tart recipe, which is a recipe for these sweet little tarts with a gooey filling, sort of like a pecan pie type thing without the pecans. And Tiffany took umbrage at the fact that I called these sugar-free butter tarts because they have agave nectar and they have maple syrup in them. So it got me thinking, what do people think is meant by the term sugar-free, and what is the term sugar-free? Does it have any real meaning for people? So I wanted to talk about what I mean when I say sugar-free and just the definition of sugar in general, because I consider myself to eat sugar-free. So if you look up the word sugar in the dictionary, you're going to find two major definitions there. And the first one is the actual white crystalline sweet substance sugar that's derived usually traditionally from sugar cane or maybe sugar beets, and it's white and you bake with it, you cook with it, you put it in your tea, whatever. That's sugar by the traditional definition. However, in the realm of nutrition, if we talk about sugar, we're also talking about a class of carbohydrates. So if you know about basic nutrition, of course, there are three macronutrients: the carbohydrates, the fats, and the proteins. And within that realm of carbohydrates, you have simple carbs and complex carbs. And within the simple carbs, you have monosaccharides and disaccharides, which are things like glucose, galactose, fructose, which are the monosaccharides. And then the disaccharides are sucrose, maltose, and lactose, which is milk sugar you've probably heard of, and sucrose is commonly referred to as white sugar. And then you have the complex carbs, which are starches, and they're polysaccharides. So they have lots of molecules. So technically speaking, those monosaccharides and those disaccharides are sugars. So when we talk about, if you look at a nutrition label and talks about the sugars in a food, it's actually combining naturally occurring sugars, which would come from those carbs, and added sugars, which would be things like white sugar. So really, in reality, unless you're willing to eat pure protein or pure fat, you're not getting something that's sugar-free. So to be offended by the fact that I called that sugar-free, it doesn't quite make sense given the fact that if you're on a ketogenic diet, if you're on a paleo diet, you're still not eating sugar-free by that definition. If you look up the nutritional data for eggs, let's say, even eggs have 2 grams of sugar. Celery has sugar. Avocado has sugar. Cucumber has sugar. All the things that you consider sugar-free do contain natural sugars. So then, given that information, how do we know what is and isn't sugar-free? Well, I look at it as kind of a sliding scale. So to me, there are 3 levels of sugars / sweeteners. You can have naturally occurring sugars, which would be all those things I just mentioned that are part of the food. And if it's a polysaccharide, if it's a full whole food, like let's say brown rice, even though it contains natural sugars, that's going to require some work for your body to extract those sugars and break it down. It's got fiber in it, it's got other nutrients in it, it has a modicum of fat, a modicum of protein, so that you are still getting other things out of that. And what that means is it's not going to spike your blood sugar levels, because it's going to be a slow rise in blood sugar as your body works to break apart all those components and convert those polysaccharides back into either glucose or fructose or galactose. And that's how your body's going to use it once it's converted to glucose. So that's a polysaccharide. That's a food that has natural sugars, but I consider that totally acceptable. You also have added sugars, and there are kind of two levels to added sugars. So you can add sweeteners that are more natural to your food, things like maple syrup, brown rice syrup, coconut sugar. And I'm going to talk about all my favorite sweeteners in the next video because I think there's a huge topic there as well. But those are things I'd consider natural sweeteners, and then you can decide which ones of those you like better or worse. And then you have added refined sugars, and that basically would be adding white sugar or brown sugar to your foods. And so that's a layer that I would never delve into. For me, that's an absolutely off the table. White sugar is just not there anymore in my diet and hasn't been for many, many years. So I'm not afraid to have natural sugars in my food, and I certainly would never want to avoid naturally occurring sugars that are inherent in whatever that ingredient is. Similarly, I once had a talk with a friend. We were up at a cottage, and he was saying, well, there's no difference between eating a mango or eating Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookie because they both have sugars in them. But from what I just talked about, that is not the case. You are working. Your body has to work to get that sugar from the mango. And don't forget that the mango has all kinds of vitamins and minerals and fiber in it as well, which are good for your body. It's a whole food that your body's breaking down into those component sugars. Whereas at Chips Ahoy, it's got white sugar in it. And please forgive me, I don't know the exact ingredients in the Chips Ahoy, but let's say some packaged traditional cookie would have refined white sugar. It might have high fructose corn syrup. It would have refined flour in it, not to mention a whole host of other chemicals that you probably would have trouble reading on the label and would not want in your body. So there's a huge difference, and natural sugars to me seem just fine. So that's just a quick clarification of what I mean when I talk about sugar-free. I mean no added white sugar, and I don't necessarily mean sweetener-free. So if I have added coconut sugar or coconut nectar or maple syrup to my recipe, that's an added sweetener, but that's where I begin to determine what kind of sweetener I would like to be added there. So I hope you found that helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And I will add any links down below about the references to some of these things in terms of carbs, monosaccharides, disaccharides, and so on. And I'd love to hear from you guys. When you use the term sugar-free, what do you mean? Do you consider that to be completely free of all sugars, in which case, as I said, you'd likely be eating mostly protein and fat? Or is there some distinction for you in terms of the different levels of sugar-free? And which sweeteners do you like better and which do you like worse? All right, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time when I come back and talk about all the different sweeteners that I prefer. Take care, everybody. Bye.